Las fotos serán al final, así que no se preocupen. Thank you, Ryan. Welcome to Mexico. También nos acompaña el productor, a quien le pido un fuerte aplauso, Ram Berman, por favor. Adelante, Ram. Una actriz que no necesita presentación, muy joven, muy guapa. Y démosle un aplauso a Ray, que es Daisy Ridley, por favor. Y por último, alguien que ha crecido con mucho de nosotros y que es un gran personaje, que lo queremos, una gran persona además. Un fuerte aplauso para Mark Hamill, Luke Skywalker. Thank you guys for being here. Okay, si pueden tomar asiento, por favor. If you want to use the headset translation. Las preguntas pueden ser en inglés o en español, tenemos traducción simultánea. Entonces, vamos a empezar, por favor. Por ahí les dimos unas paletitas, unos hand signals. Por favor, ¿quién tiene por ahí? Empezamos con la primera.
He didn't have to admit that. Well, I bonded with him at that very moment. Because if I really intellectually imagined how big it really was, I would just be crippled with fear. So I had to pretend it was a small art house film that the critics would embrace, but the audiences would reject in mass numbers. That's what I pretended.
Just adding what Mark said, there were the kind of those two layers, I think. For me, coming into it as kind of, you know, as the new kid, there was first kind of the shock and awe of, we're doing Star Wars with a capital SW, kind of the big picture of it. But then once we actually started working, I didn't find that it took a lot of effort to fool ourselves into thinking to you guys, to the whole cast. It just, everyone kind of was, our eyes were on the right target, I think, of just making an interesting movie. And when you put your eyes on that target, everything around you kind of shrinks down, and you're just trying to tell a story. And that's what it felt like, I think.
Right, you're just so focused on what you're doing in the moment, you can't think about facing all you guys a year and a half later. Now's when I should be really scared.
I'm terrified.
Okay, thank you. Aquí tenemos una más, por favor. Nombre y medio.
For the producer, Star Wars has some of the best special effects and movie and spaceships and weapons of the cinema. How is to balance that? To have to use big sets like the Millennium Falcon and improve the special effects with every movie, so people also have a sensation of wow.
I mean, our approach initially was, you know, we wanted to do as much as possible practical, so we end up building like almost like 120 sets, which is like insane amount of number of sets. And then we always, of course, have to complement it with visual effects, and we have the great team at ILM that was headed by visual effects named Ben Morris, who work with drawing, and you know, I cannot really tell you what a fantastic job they've done. And we also had Neil Scanlon, was a creature effects guy. So we, you know, hopefully push the envelope a little bit and doing a lot of things practically, but also with the help of the visual effects.
Okay, thank you. ¿Por ahí hay alguna pregunta? Radio Disney. ¿Te pones de pie, por favor?
A mí me dieron el micrófono, pero no soy Radio Disney.
Ok, bueno, si ya lo tienes, empecemos contigo y después Radio Disney, por favor.
Hi, Gonzalo Lira from Cinema Mobile. I would like to ask something to Daisy. I think that we've noticed that in this film, Mark or Luke is also a protagonist with you. Given the what's happening right now in Hollywood, the debate around the place of women in Hollywood, how important do you think that it is to maintain a female character as strong and as important as your character was in the first film of this new trilogy?
I really don't think there's any way that anyone could think it wasn't a good thing. By Michael, JJ and Larry, 3 men, and Ray continues to be created by men. Obviously there are women in that team. Kathy is incredible and runs Lucasfilm, but I think what's brilliant is the combination of the two, because we can't do one thing without the other. We can't have it that just women are feeling progress and men aren't, or vice versa. So to be playing an incredibly empowered woman in a wonderful film, surrounded by incredibly empowered characters, everyone is, and there's diversity and there's quality in this film in particular. I think it's needed to be done and have done it, I think, brilliantly. So I feel very, very lucky to be in the hands I've been in with Ryan and with JJ and with Kathy, with everyone at Disney and Lucasfilm. And I think obviously it's happening in cinema, everyone can see it's happening, that there's more representation across the board. And I feel really lucky that I get to be one of those people that is
Thank you. Ahora sí seguimos con Radio Disney, por favor.
Hi everyone, Alfonso Gonzalez from Radio Disney. Each Star Wars film has a unique tone and a mood. So Episode 3 obviously is a little bit darker, and maybe Episode 7 was a little bit lighter. So which is the tone and the mood for this film, The Last Jedi film?
Well, because it's the middle chapter, and because the job of the middle chapter is to kind of challenge the characters, this movie is going to go to some darker places. It's going to be a little bit more, it's going to have a little bit more of that opera in it, I think. But it was very important to me, first and foremost, that it felt like a Star Wars movie. And to me, growing up as a kid, Star Wars movies mean fun, and they mean they're an adventure, and they always, you can have the operatic moments, but they always have one foot in Flash Gordon, and that's essential. And so I very much wanted to continue on the tone that I think JJ and Michael Arndt and Larry Kasdan created so brilliantly in The Force Awakens, that humor and that fun and that sense of adventure. So there is darkness in the film. I hope that audiences will be pleasantly surprised by how fun and how funny it is. That's my hope.
Thank you. Tenemos una pregunta de Canal 11. Adelante, por favor, Canal 11.
Hi, Sandra Cicle. You had the opportunity to be with Carrie Fisher in her last movie. Which was your best memory with her, or how was this experience?
Is that to me? Everything about Carrie was larger than life. She's like some latter-day Auntie Mame. She wanted to live life to the fullest in every moment. I'm selfishly upset that she's not here, because if she were, she'd be, giving me the middle finger and making faces at me as I tried to answer these questions. Her timing was impeccable, except in this case. But I can't imagine my life without her. Even though we had for years not seeing one another, we're like real siblings. We'd have big fights and scream at each other, but there was always that basic level of trust and love. It was so great to be able to reconnect with all the cast in Force Awakens, because life goes on and you don't see people that you want to as much as you'd like to. She's wonderful in the film. There's an aura of poignancy that is unavoidable, knowing that this is her last performance. But every time I feel sort of sorry for myself, I have to think about Billie Lourd. She lost not only her mother, but her grandmother in the space of 2 days. It's unimaginably tragic. But, it's part and parcel of the tragedy, and continuing on through the worst of adversity. So I'll never stop missing her, and again, it's hard to have to deal with that while promoting the film, because if life were fair, she'd be here mocking me and all of you.
Ok, tenemos una de hola. Adelante.
Hi, for you, Daisy. Rey has become a role model and a hero for young girls. Do you feel any kind of pressure? And what did you learn of yourself in The Last Jedi that you didn't know before in The Force Awakens?
I did feel personal pressure actually going into The Last Jedi, because The Force Awakens had just come out like a month before. And so I was sort of dealing with, firstly, I'd never been in a film before, so a film I was in came out, and then it's a Star Wars film that had come out. And then, people are like, hey. I'm like, hey, what did I do? They're like, oh no, you're in that film. I'm like, oh yeah. And it's like, it's a lot to take in. And because I knew what people had responded to in The Force Awakens, in particular my relationship with John, Rey and Finn on their adventure, I think that was my nerves, because I thought, oh, if this is the way people are responding, I don't know what I did the first time round that's made people respond like this, and people are so kind, but I don't really understand it, so I don't know how to do that thing again. And if I'm not with John at the beginning, I don't know how to do that, because he was like my support network the first time round, him and Harrison, but John in particular. So I felt nervous, because I thought, oh, is this going to do for people what the first one did? Will people respond as strongly to this story as they did with that? And then obviously we were able to have some rehearsal, we sat down and we talked through a lot of stuff. And then you realise, yes, it's a challenge, and different things happen in the galaxy, and that's what's exciting, and that's how people grow. And so those nerves went away, but I did feel that very much, and I cannot remember the second part of your question. I'm so sorry.
The pressure you feel being a role model for young girls?
No, I don't feel the personal pressure, because I'm not Rey. She's way better than I am. I'm just really lucky to play her. I don't have the fate of the galaxy resting on my shoulders. I am just in a film that makes people happy. Yeah, and I think I don't feel that pressure so much. I think it's really lovely, and because it really was a surprise how people responded, I'm still blown away by how kind people are, and especially when parents are like, I took my daughter and I could get her the costume and she's so happy, and like little boys want to run like Rey, and like that's incredible. There's nothing, it's overwhelming, but there's nothing scary about that. It's just kids being kids.
Rey has such empathy. It's so easy to relate to her, and she's sort of analogous to my character because she came from nothing. But we shouldn't forget that Carrie, even though she was royalty, was no shrinking violet. She wasn't a damsel in distress. The thing that when I read the script, I thought it was so funny. First, she complained about the ship that we came to rescue her in, which is so human. And then she was dissatisfied with our rescue. You call this a rescue? And she grabbed our gun and made me and Han look like chumps. So that was effortless feminism. But it's great to see it continue. And like Ryan said, to see these young girls all done up like Rey, it's really heartwarming. You know, now they have Wonder Woman, and it's, you know, Sigourney Weaver and Aliens, and Linda Hamilton and Terminator and so forth. But it's a great thing for the empowerment of female characters.
Por aquí.
Hello, over here, Cristina Ibañez from Cine Mexico. My question is for you, Mark. Us Mexicans, we learn a lot about Star Wars and Luke all over these years. There are a lot of big lessons that, even though this is a fiction universe, we can use in our personal lives. But you, being here in Mexico for the first time, and well, seeing a little bit about us Mexicans, what do you think Luke can learn about us after maybe the earthquake we had and the union we show? Maybe if there anything that Luke can learn about Mexican people?
Well, of course. I mean, the idea of doing the right thing for the greater good rather than for self-aggrandizement. You know, that there's safety in numbers and that you help the people that are less fortunate than you. Those are all tenets of the film. And by the way, when I was a kid, my father was in the Navy, so we lived in San Diego, and I went to Tijuana several times, and that's where I got my first Cantinflas marionette, so I'm a big fan of his. No, listen, how can you live in Los Angeles and not love the Latin culture? We're in the minority there. And when you think about where I lived in California, San Diego, Los Angeles, San Jose, San Francisco, are you picking up a trend here? So, you know, it's great. It feels, I mean, the people are so warm here, they make you feel like part of the family.
Ok, tenemos tiempo para un par de preguntas más. A ver, a ti te vi primero, adelante. Ok.
Hi, I'm Silva from Guayalince, and my question first for Mark. Every Star Wars fan, here in the front, every Star Wars fan love you and show you that love and respect to you. So do you have any interesting and shocking story that happened to you with the fans of Star Wars, of all these years being Luke? And we know who's going to Rey, and we don't want to know, but I don't want you to tell us. But if you could choose as a fan, what would you choose, Skywalker or Kenobi?
Well, I'm sitting right here. What's she gonna say? Listen, just in general about your question about Star Wars fans, what is amazing to me is the passion they have and how they've incorporated the mythology into their own lives. And you hear these personal stories of getting through, terrible times in their own lives. You know, it helped when my sister was in the hospital, or I met my husband online, and we had by the sequel we had a young child and named it Leia, or whatever. It's astonishing. It never gets old, and I'm just sometimes moved by the fact that they have taken us to heart, and I don't encounter it on a day-to-day basis. It's usually when I come to fan events and so forth, and people tearfully recount how important these films are to them. Because, at the end of the day, they're 2.5 hours of escapism. But as I've learned over the years, it means so much more than I could ever imagine. And the idea that I was a small part of something that made so many people so happy, it's just the greatest gift that could have ever been given. Now, back to the Skywalker Kenobi question.
The thing is, anything I say is going to be, more weighted now. What I think is really amazing, because again, because I didn't understand exactly the impact of Star Wars, I didn't fully, well, like when Force Awakens came out and I was like, oh my god, who's your parents? I was like, oh. And like, I was genuinely surprised that that was the main question. Because for me, like getting into something, eyes wide shut sort of thing, what I found so amazing in The Force Awakens is Rey meets Finn, and they've never met before. He's a defected stormtrooper. She's a scavenger, and then we're like brother and sister, and it's an amazing connection. And in that moment, like Rey finds a piece of family. And before that, she's met BB-8, and she finds a piece of family. And then she meets Han Solo, she finds a piece of family. When she's finally with the Resistance, it's like, oh, this is sort of where I belong. And then off she has to go on another adventure. But essentially, Rey is seeking belonging. And so, obviously, a lot of Star Wars is looking back and wondering where she came from. But I think the wonderful thing, especially about this film, is it's all about progress and the relationships people are making now. And obviously, things are influenced by what you had before. But I just think it's beautiful, the relationships that are formed with people that aren't even necessarily, that wouldn't be classed as family, but family is who you choose, I think. You can choose to love people and bring them into your home and make a life with a group of people that have no blood relation to you. So whatever I say now is going to be taken. So in this film, Rey turns up and essentially has a quest from someone else for Luke. It's not really about her. She just has to do this and ask questions and seek guidance from Luke. And in that moment, again, Rey finds